Cool.
Alrighty.
So, yeah. So I just finished the Rain Wild Chronicles, which,
You did?
whoopsie daisy, sorry, introductions. I don't even know how these work. Um, if you know me, you definitely know Derri, but
Pretty
Derri, if
much.
you want to introduce yourself for the people
Okay,
that
it's
may watch this.
oh, you should really know me by now. I'm Derri. I'm from Derri 3 and I am emotional support Derri for Evie coming through all of the realm of the Elderlings. Because we need it when we go through realm of the Elderlings for the first time.
It
So
is very, very true. So, yes, I am the self-proclaimed acolyte of Derri, as the Queen of Robin Hobb. So, it is a title I've bestowed on myself. One day I'll earn
and
it.
I haven't nailed it.
So yeah, the whole purpose of this discussion slash gush fest slash rambling, because I'm
Yeah.
sure it will quickly devolve, at least when I'm involved, is Rain Wild Chronicles. Admittedly in a Hobb hangover at this point because of after finishing this series. I don't understand why it gets so much crap. This is a great series.
It is a great series.
People need to stop shitting on it all the time, okay?
They really do. And yes, we are talking to you, Andrew, from Andrew's Wizardly Reads.
Yes,
You're
Andrew.
wrong. But I try really hard to sort of let people know that the series was supposed to end at Tawny Man. So that's an end book. That's a climax book. There's no more after this book. So to sort of try and read on like this is a continuation from that, it's just not going to work. You
Yeah,
have to accept that this is the beginning of a new bit, and it's going to feel like the beginning of a new bit, and it's just not going to be paced the same.
yeah,
Once you've got that in your head, you can read it for what it is. And what it is really good. Like,
yeah,
really good.
yeah.
And I just wish more people would do that.
Yes. Also, probably should have prefaced this. I'll put it in the title.
Yeah.
This is gonna be full spoiler. We're not even gonna do like a non-spoiler thing, like full spoilers all up
Yeah.
through the end of Rain Wild Chronicles. So if you haven't read Rain Wild, go
Bagger
away.
off.
Or if
Yeah.
you want to be
Jog
spoiled,
on.
that's fine too. If you want to have the benefit of a reread without rereading it,
True.
have
This is
at it.
true.
No,
Yeah.
you're an adult, I'm assuming, and you can do whatever you want. So
That's right. We are not the
anyway,
book police. They refuse to issue me that license. However,
listen, if Alan is the City Watch, Discworld
yeah.
guy, Discworld police, you are the Realm of the Elderlands equivalent. So
Can I be a community constable though? I don't like the whole "you'll do as you're told" kind of thing. I can just be the friendly neighbourhood police person that just kind of ushers you gently, because I'd rather you did it this way.
okay,
So,
cool. All right. Now that we got that settled, yeah. So I mean, like I said, a lot of what we're going to talk about, I'm just going to be repeating my voice messages to you, so act
that's fine.
surprised, please.
Sure.
But I think like you've said before, like you really primed me for
Yeah.
what to expect. Not to say that I had very low expectations for this, but I knew going into Rain Wild that it's commonly the least liked sub-series of the Realm of the Elderlanes. It doesn't follow any of the characters that you've met previously through Farseer, Liveship, or Tawny Man. And yeah, and it's just basically her coming back to the Realm of the Elderlanes after finishing it with Tawny Man. What, almost 10 years later, 6-7 years later, or something like that. So it definitely feels like her. I don't want to say that it feels more experimental, but it feels like she's exploring a lot more, which is a little ironic considering the whole purpose of the series, in that they're trying to find Kelsingra. Is that how you say it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and there's just kind of this thematic, kind of almost meta type experience that I had with this book, where I can see I'm putting myself in Robin Hobb's shoes, which I could, obviously they're huge shoes to fill. I can imagine her kind of using this as a vehicle for reacquainting herself with the world, while still building so much out of it. And it's so good. Oh, hi Max.
It is really well done. And I think too, and because she uses really young characters in this book, and there's a reason for that, which we can get into, but the youth of those main characters means that she can genuinely give you everything from this young, oblivious point of view. Everything is new to them. So she can put in that world building without it feeling heavy-handed, because they're experiencing it all for the first time as well. And I think it works on so many levels, because they're all young enough to have their personalities actually impacted by the things they learn. None of them are set in their ways. None of them have got an established sort of adult personality yet. So I think it works just really well for the story she's trying to tell in Rain Wilds, for that main cast in the first couple of books to be so young. So I think it's well written there as far as that goes.
Yeah, I will admit that I did feel there was, especially in the first two books, there was a very noticeable, at least for me, repetitiveness to things. But this may be me excusing it. I'm looking at you, Andrew, before you tell me. This may be me excusing it, but it makes sense, considering that we have all these characters that are not just, teenagers, but they are very naive of the world, because Elise is very naive. Like, she's sheltered, and she's
very socially ostracized. Like, they haven't had a normal child. None of them have had a normal socialized existence before the events of the book, for reasons that you learn in the book. And that includes Alice. She's bookish. She doesn't consider herself attractive, nor do the people around her. So she's kind of hermited herself away, and she doesn't interact with society. And that naivety feels genuine. Like, it doesn't feel like, well, how could she not know that? You're like, well, okay, she doesn't know that. She should, but she doesn't. And that works, because it fits with how we're told her character is. And with the youngsters, again, they've all been physically ostracized, that nobody wants to associate with them. So they don't have an idea of how society works, and they're literally making it up as they go along. And I think that really works, because that's sort of the theme, is how do we form this community, and what is it going to look like? And we get to make these decisions, and we're not making informed decisions, because we have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I liked that.
Yeah, there's this, I honestly thought, I'm like, is this going to turn into like a Lord of the Flies situation? Because it's Hobb. Like, it can get really, really dark. And I'm like,
it really could have.
We're going to go that way. But obviously of what I've read so far, haven't read the last series yet. Hopefully soon. This is a very positive series.
Yeah.
It is, dare I say, cozy? Like, almost cozy quality, I would think. At least for Hobb.
It has its moments of stress and tension, but you're never, like, it's not as
I have
dark.
This,
it's not as...
Yeah, I have this... I had more of a hope that everything was going to turn out okay for all the characters, as opposed to Fitz and everybody else.
What is she going to put them through?
Yeah, exactly. So, but with that said, like, they go
through some stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think so. Mara from Books Like Woe, she mentioned, I think in a wrap up, I think she was talking about City of Dragons specifically, how, or maybe it was Dragonhaven, one of the Rain Wild books. She mentioned how the thematic aspect of this series is really about reproductive rights, and this was right before I started Dragon Keeper, and I'm like,
Yep.
oh, interesting. So I had that in the back of my mind, and I'm like, oh shit, she is so right. Like,
yeah, it's definitely a strong thread.
Yeah, this is much more, and this is probably going to sound weird / wrong or badly, but I don't intend it that way. This is a much more female focused book compared to the other ones. Obviously there are female characters in the other books, but the male characters it's just a total flip. The majority of the characters are female. There are very few male characters, and even those male characters have, at least other than Hest, the male characters that we follow have pretty much more feminine qualities. I think they're not traditionally masculine, like Leftrin. Apparently I like Insta-love because boom, he sees Elise and is like, oh, I'm in love with
I like that lady.
Yeah. And there's just this constant sorry, the dog is, I don't know what he's doing. There's this just, I agree. There is a teenage quality to this entire YA type quality to the entire series, but it makes sense because, you know, the Dragon Keepers are teenagers. Elise is very sheltered. Leftrin, in a way, even though he is worldly, he's still also sheltered as well. Like, he's confined to Tarman.
Very narrow, sort of.
Yeah, very narrow. But then on top of that, you have this parallel aspect to the dragons. Like, they are young, they are inexperienced, they don't have their memories, and so it's this weird kind of vicious cycle, weird feeding off of each other of, like, the keepers are immature, but they're connected to these dragons who are also immature, and they're making them more immature and, like, you know, like not immature, I should say volatile in their emotions.
Very volatile.
How they you know, react to things. And it's just, it makes sense. Again, Andrew, this could be just me justifying it, but damn it.
But it's valid. I mean, it is a valid point. And the dragons, as you say, I mean, they are young. And their memories are stunted because they only had one adult dragon there to share her memories. And her memories of being a dragon are all handed down memories to her. She has none of her own at this point. So they're all getting very limited memory that they would normally have had. And because of the way that they had to get to the hatching area and the difficulties they had hatching and all of that, they're stunted. They're not fully formed. They're not proper dragons as such. So there's all of that angst going on within the dragons, that they're these mighty beasts. They should be impressive, and they're stuck in these bodies that are just wrong. And so there's that going on as well, feeding into the doubts these kids have got about their own physical deformities. So there's a very almost cannibalistic thing going on where they're just feeding on each other's insecurities and really highlighting them. And I think for teenagers particularly, that's a really strong thing, this sense of, I'm not what I should be, and how could I possibly be more than this? And I don't get the chance, I don't get the opportunity, life's not fair. Absolutely. And all of them, from the dragons through the keepers, they've all been told they don't have the right to breed. They're not right. They shouldn't be allowed. And so for Mara to say that it is about reproductive rights is a completely valid read, because it has a lot to say about it. And it's not a new thread either, because it was also addressed in Live Ships. But again, tied with dragons, because Bolt, when she was the ship as Vivacia, she's the one that says to Etta, you can't wait for a man to tell you when you can have a child. That's your decision. You make that decision. So this is a thread that goes right back. And then back again further into Farseer when Molly takes that decision.
Well, I was going to say, also Ketrican,
yes,
this complete and utter anguish at and feeling of guilt and feeling like she was the one that caused her to lose her child with Verity. That is a incredibly, unfortunately, common experience.
Yeah, because you do feel responsible.
Yeah.
It's your body, and your body has let you down. And you're like, but this is what I should be able to do. And to not, it feels, well, it's almost like a ripping out of your soul to some degree. You're like, what is wrong with me that I can't? But then we bring it back into the Rain Wild Chronicles, and Balin on Tarman makes the point of showing the girls, this is why that rule exists for you. Because the risks to the children when we are the way we are is this stillborn baby who is deformed. And she makes sure all of those young girls see that child. This is what you're risking. Know what you are risking before you make this choice. And it was very much around informed responsibility. Know why the rules were there. Did you disagree with them? Yes. Should you disagree with them? Yes. This is the reason for them. So go in knowing the risk. And I loved that.
So I will add that for me, I think the pin that, or the thing that it all stems down to, and is really the crux of the entire social aspect of the Rain Wilders and their ability to have children and bear normal children. It's really about the support system. The dragons are supposed to be the ones to help change these children. I.e. Malta and Thrawn. Tarman is the one keeping Thrawn alive until they can find a dragon and Silver. So they don't have that support system in the story. It is the dragons and Silver, but in our world, that is the support system of women and reproductive rights, of whether that is abortion care or birth control or sex education or whatever, or even just like general, like, if you want to have
just
a child,
the availability of antenatal medication. So make sure you're getting the right vitamins and minerals while you're carrying. That's a really simple thing in the Western world. That's not quite the word I wanted, but whereas if you live somewhere like rural Ghana, that's not a simple thing to do. So there's a very strong chance that even if you are lucky enough to carry your child to term, it's going to be lacking some basic needs. So the support structure, the necessity of that support structure, there's the knowing that your child could need help in very basic ways to function is important to be aware of and to have available to you.
And
should be part of your decision.
Yeah, and not even the aspect of the child or not child. It's the person bearing that child who may want to bear that child or not. Like, unfortunately, even in Western society, the maternal mortality rates are
ridiculously high.
Especially
still ridiculously high.
Yeah, it's
and it also has a racial component as well, because the figures around that are disturbingly high.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of that we're leaning into with the books, because we're being told that just that section of the community needs permission almost to have babies. And the care for them isn't there beforehand. They're not fully accepted into this society. They're ostracized. They don't have access to so many things. And the differences in their body causing further differences in the children, it could be used as any kind of otherism, whether it's racial or for those who have mental issues. You know, you look at the people who have suffered with Down syndrome or a severe autism, there's such societal pressure for them not to have children. All of them are individuals, and each individual has to make that choice with the relevant information, you know, and it is a really strong thing. It really is.
And I mean, to hopefully build off that and segue to another aspect is, you know, the dragon keepers are sent off to go find this legendary Kelsingra, which the dragons didn't really know existed. Like, well, so no, sorry, I take that back. They did know it existed, but they were like, oh yeah, there's treasure there, to kind of convince them to say, yeah, let's go on this journey. And just the aspect, the fact in the book, or in the books, that they found Kelsingra, and there is this, they are the ones that found it as a society, micro society, I guess, and are managing this lost but new city, but they're still having to worry about the infiltration and the potentiality of control from the rest of the Rain Wilds, from Treehog and Kaserick and Bingtown. Bingtown is not technically the Rain Wilds. Either way. So it's just, they still can't be not self-sufficient, but like they still can't control themselves entirely, because they're never going to be, people are always going to want what's in Kelsingra.
Absolutely. And they have to really fight to keep agency around what they come to perceive as their place. And that's, I mean, agency is a huge theme throughout the whole thing. And for them to want to keep control over it, absolutely, you understand that, because, you know, the story is telling you the city has been designed around dragons. They have dragons. The city has been around the people who support dragons. They're people who support dragons. This is literally a city built for them. To have somebody else come in and go, that's not how you do it, and no, I'm going to do this, and you don't need that, we're going to take that. The fear of that is so genuine, because as a reader, you're looking at it and you just know that, yes, that's what they're facing. So to try and keep it secret long enough for their dragons to be able to defend it, you're like, yeah, I get the point of that. And we get so many wonderful little answers and callbacks once they find Kelsingra, that for world building alone, the Rain Wild Traders is absolutely worth reading, and absolutely why you should never skip it. The information you learn once they find Kelsingra is very important. You know, they find the silver well, and you learn about the properties of silver. Well, most of them. There's still more to come. And it's such an incredible place to tell you the value of learning and meaning, and the ability to pass that information to another generation, and just the sheer value of being able to keep knowledge. It's just marvelous.
There's also this kind of extra, there's so many layers to Robin Hobb, oh my god. There's this an added layer of, at least for me, this kind of colonial aspect, not colonial, but
no, it is.
I'm trying to think of the equivalency that I have in my mind is like museums. So taking these people's artifacts, their lives, and moving it to a new place to be like, oh, we're keeping it safe,
to show off,
or
display.
We're going to use this to keep it safe because it's no longer being used. Well, wasn't yours to begin with. It should stay in its place and be used for what its purpose was, not
right.
to just sit in a museum or whatever, the equivalency of the Rain
Particularly
Wild.
as we learn in the Rain Wild Chronicles, the use of some of these things are still being learned, and when you consider how much stuff they've torn from the city they've unearthed at Tree Hawk, you're like, how much did they just lose there that they gave away, not knowing the purpose of the things, how they could have been used to genuinely better their situation. And this small community, because they have Alice, who knows what will happen if it's not protected, they're able to go, no, we're not taking anything from anywhere, and to be able to retain that knowledge that's so important to get the city functioning again. And
it's not a
marvelous.
Yeah, it's I loved, I mean, there's so many things that I loved about the series, obviously. But I love just the tension between Alice, however you want to say her name, and Rapskull, because she's not an Elderlane,
yes.
and Rapskull's like, well, you're not an Elderlane, you can't tell us how to, what to do with these robes, these clothing, whatever. And she really has to realize and face, oh shit, yeah, he's right in a way, but at the same
is a living
time,
city.
but then she also, like, two seemingly opposing truths can be actual at the same time. So, and I think she had to struggle with that in a way, and so did Rapskull in a way, of like, actually both of these things are true, so we can not necessarily come to a common ground, but it's like you can recognize that. Yeah, exactly. And I just
and they did come to that. I mean, they did, and where Alice was able to sort of go, well, I want to keep some things as we found them.
Yeah.
And Rapskull's like, yeah, that's fine, but we have to actually use the things that are here. So if we need to use them, we're gonna use them.
Yeah, and him or all of the keepers using Elise's, like, what is it, more academic knowledge of the artifacts by the end with the dragon, what is it, the saddle things, the barrier things. I don't even know, can't remember what it's called. My memory is shot. But yeah, I absolutely love that. I admit that. So Dragon Keeper, I was really intrigued by. Dragonhaven, I didn't like it nearly as much, but that's just because there was so much like, oh, I love you. Oh, I love you so much. Oh, you're not here.
I do find that funny because it does get a lot of flack for the love triangle. And I've always argued, and I still do, there isn't a love triangle. She's not interested in either
she's not
of them.
interested in any of them.
She's like, go away, leave me alone. Totally her right. That's not a love triangle. That's two lovesick boys who are trying to prove a point to each other. That's a very different story.
I think Leftrin, one of the characters, literally said in the book, like, they're in a pissing match right now. So
yeah. And it comes off the back of the misogyny sort of thing that was happening in live ships, where you've got Greft so early in the books going, if you don't choose, you're causing a problem.
Yeah.
That made me so angry. It still makes me angry every time I read it. I'm like, that's not how this should work. That really ruffled my feathers.
I was so happy when Greft died. Like, I was like, yeah finally. Although, I'm skipping ahead to a totally different thing, but Hest, oh my god. Kyle is no longer my most hated character ever. I don't know how people can say that they hate Kyle and say Kyle is the worst when Hest is right there. He is genuinely the worst. I hate Hest.
I think Hest is almost because he knows that he's not very nice. and he just has far too great an opinion of himself. He's almost comical to me, whereas I would always hate Kyle the most.
So it's honestly, it's the complete opposite for me.
Yeah.
Because Kyle is so self-absorbed that he doesn't even like recognize that what he's doing or saying, like, you could argue, yeah, there is malevolent intent there, but it's his intent is purely like self. There's just a narcissism there, and he's not even aware of anybody else. He's just aware of himself and what he wants. Whereas Hest, true malevolency, excuse me, because he knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows exactly like what he's saying to manipulate people to his own gain, and he just gaslights everybody, and it
he's awful.
enrages me so much.
Truly horrible person, and
I can't tell you how
it does make that conclusion to his story so very satisfying. So satisfying.
I mean, you got my live voice message of me being like, I've never felt so happy and excited to read of a character's death.
And it is a moment of glee, and I can't think of anyone I've spoken to who hasn't felt that moment of glee. It's like, it's so awesome, because it really is. He's come up against this attitude that's even more self-absorbed than him, and it's so marvelous. It's so what's the word I'm looking for? It's so appropriate the way it goes, and then nobody cares. They're like, oh, where did he go? Oh, who knows? And everyone just goes on. He left no gap in anybody's life, and I liked that. I really liked that he was just kind of, and we're done with you.
Yeah, I think that's a common thing throughout the series, at least for me, in that, at least for Thymara, you know, she's constantly worrying about, well, what could happen, what you know, at least in the when it pertains to like pregnancy and having sex or whatever, she was worried about like, well, what will happen? I don't want to break the rules, and I don't want to get pregnant and potentially either lose the child or even lose my own life, which are totally valid. And she doesn't want to be like a burden. And then Elise on the flip, on the other side, is like, I don't like, what I'm trying to say. So she's worried about like, oh, her past with Hest, and like, what am I going to do there? There's just this aspect for me of people, the characters not being present. They're constantly either worrying about the future or the past. And, you know, I was telling my therapist a couple weeks ago that, you know, what's the common thing? Depression is worrying about the past. Anxiety is worrying about the future. You just have to be in the present. That is the Rain Wild Chronicles, that exploration of just being present. And I think the dragons help that, because they truly are present, and they're not moved to go to Kelsingra until they start getting the memories, more memories, and kind of exploring that. Who's it? Mercor, I think. Was he Malkin?
Oh, he was.
Malkin. He was? Okay. I was like, I couldn't remember. I was like, I think he was Malkin, but I couldn't remember. I love Mercor so much.
He was great. And the human equivalent is Rapskull. He's not depressed and he's not anxious. He is genuinely in the moment, and is why I think he makes the transition so easily into stepping into his role as an elderling. He was like, this is mine. I'm entitled to this. So I'm going to live this, and accepts all of those opportunities as they present themselves. Everybody else is worried about what it's going to do to them, and what if I become that person, and what if I can't handle this, and what if I don't do, rather than going, I have a dragon right here. That dragon's going to stop me getting lost in this memory. I can take in as much as I want of this and learn as much as I need to know about anything I want to know about. And that ultimately is the magic of the elderlings.
So I would actually challenge that.
Go for it.
He was definitely obviously present because he was the one that was teaching Hebe to fly before everybody else.
Yeah,
Why she was able to fly, which is so great. I love it.
it was.
There's just a genuinely if anyone is naive, it is Rap School. Not even naive, but like he doesn't let anything. He doesn't absorb anything. So like when Jerd, when she couples with him, he's just like, okay. He doesn't think about the consequences. He doesn't think about like the connections or anything like that. He doesn't care. Like he just doesn't,
because he's in the moment. In the moment, this is happening. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with that. So yeah.
But I would argue that Rap School, because everyone else is trying to find their place and, you know, their identity in some way, Rap School, it's not even a conscious or active thing that he's doing. Well, he is in a way, but he totally becomes somebody else in Toledo.
He does.
He lets Toledo take over his memories, take over.
He does to some degree. I think between he and Hebe, I think there was an element where the love between them was strong enough for them to go, I can see our limits intellectually, because I don't think that Rap School was perhaps very bright. And taking Taladir's memories gave him that. And I think that he willingly accepts, I would rather be that person. Like I genuinely think that that was a choice that he made, because he'd certainly, you know, experimented with plenty of other of the memory stones and of the memory figures around the place. And he chose that one. He very much chose to embody that memory, that character, that person. And whether it was a deliberate choice or a subconscious choice, I don't know. But I do think it was a choice, because he didn't see that he had much to offer as Rap School. And I think that that was because he was so in the now. He wasn't about planning for people attacking. He wasn't about how do we defend, and saw that there's value in that and chose to take that on. Whether that's Hobb saying we're choosing anxiety, I don't know. But I that's how I read that it was a decision on his part to take that personality on rather than allowing it to happen.
Yeah.
But that's just me.
Well, I will say to kind of what's the phrase? I don't even know the phrase. To play devil's advocate to myself, I guess. I don't know.
We're exploring all the options.
Yes. Rap School becoming Teletor, however you say it. That is, one could argue that it's a plot convenience for Thymara to not become, but to access Amarinda's memories, to then get the silver and be able to have the dragons have access to silver. But
something like that had to happen, though, to really explore and explain how the elderlings became the elderlings, and how they managed to keep that level of sort of technological magic going, because they could save and share those memories. And you have to see that somewhere. You have to be able to see somewhere that they're going to gain not just those memories as knowledge in your brain. You're going to remember learning it. You're going to remember how you felt when you learned it. Right. And so and how better to do that than to have somebody emotionally invest in this character whose memories they're accessing. And so, yes, it's a plot convenience, but so is Fitz being born. I mean, everything ultimately is a plot convenience. Is it something that makes sense in the story? I think is more important, and I think it does. It makes sense. It flows. It fits with who Rapskull is as a character, and that he would go looking for something like that. And I think it fits the theme as far as Weimara having to step out of herself, having to have that other set of memories to allow her to make a different choice and see a different way. Because let's face it, everyone should have therapy. We all need somebody to say to us, just look at it from a different perspective and see how you feel about it from this way. And there are no therapists in the Rain Wilds, but she does have an opportunity to step outside herself and look at it in a different way, which ultimately leads to, the next thing. So, yeah.
So, I was looking for for one of the passages that I marked, and then I just realized one of the passages I marked completely just, I'm eating crow right now on my comments about Rapskull. So Jerd asks Rapskull / Tilador, "You've seen many things in the stone, haven't you, Tilador?" He looked at her consideringly. "I lived many things," he replied, "and other things I know from the stone ancestors I chose for myself. If one is to be a warrior, then one chooses the accounts of warriors, to read them from the stone and to use their experience again. And so I am Tilador, but I am also the ones that Tilador incorporated into himself." So there's this this if he becomes actually more dragon-like in a way, because he is incorporating those memories, those generational memories, through the memory stones, much like the dragons in their cocoons, which I'm just having a live reaction and realization that
layers.
it's all silver.
So many layers.
It's all silver. So
it's all silver.
Freaking Robin Hobb!
I don't know. I have to pay attention this reread, because one of the chapter epigraphs, the little notey bits that Fitz puts at the beginning of his chapters, is him mulling over the source of magic. What is the source of magic? Is it inborn in you from your family? Is it in the ground that you live around? And ultimately, we discover in the Rain Wilds that it's in the ground. It's the silver. The silver is physical magic. It's like, have some magic. What do you want to do with it? And the elderlings have found a way to use the silver to save their own memories, to be able to share them, as you said, like the dragons do, how to form the skill roads, the skill pillars, the skill, whatever you want to name that has skill in it. They figured out how to do that with the silver. But it's such a fundamental part of the dragons that not only is it a physical thing separate in the earth, but it's in them as a species. They are a magical species, literally in their blood. Literally in their blood. And the layers that you get around memory and self and magic and how it all intertwines, and it really is astonishing that she was able to not only build all of those in from the beginning, but not know that she'd built them in from the beginning, that she could come back later to write the Rain Wilds and go, I'm going to pull all of these things that I already put in there and make it this.
Which would be so easy, like in a much lesser, actually, even in a slightly lesser skilled author, it would be so easy to retcon yourself. She doesn't do that at all.
Everything's already there. Everything. And trust me, I mean, I've read it enough to be able to say that conclusively. Nothing is brought up later to fix things. Things that happened in those books that she wrote back then stay that way. Everything stays that way because that's how it was to start with. She's just bringing a new lens and going, and now if we look at it through this lens, it looks like this.
Again.
And let's explore that.
Again, going back to what I said earlier in our little chat, two seemingly opposing truths can be factual.
Yeah. Well, we see that with I'm just trying to think when I learned that. I might not use that example. I'll use a different example. But, you've got situations where in Farseer, Fitz looks at a situation and goes, okay, this is the situation. This is the way to deal with it. That is the fact. Those are the facts. But because they're not all of the facts, he doesn't know the truth of that situation. Later, he will learn other facts about that situation that don't make what he did previously wrong or untrue or based on a lie, but changes the context severely enough that the situation he thought was true wasn't true. The facts are the same, but he's now got more information and it looks very different. Mm-hmm. And that happens a lot in this series. Where as soon as you get more information, you have to reframe it and go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Now I get why those people reacted that way instead of how I thought they should have, based on what I knew at the time, which wasn't enough. But
which going completely tangential, because I will lose this thought if I don't start it out. My theory, which was almost from the beginning, I have more meat to kind of support my theory. I don't even know if that's a phrase, but it is now. I was like,
for the mill.
Yes, there you go. I was like, you know what? In Farseer, I'm like, I think the fool's an elderling. And then in Rain Wilds, I'm like, the fool's a fucking elderling. And I still think he is. So we will find out in Fitz and the Fool. Like, just, go use your poker face, please, Derri. As you have been able to practice it for so long while
I'm getting pretty good at it. And part of it is just accepting that at this point in time, absolutely, that's a belief that someone can come to completely naturally, whether it's how it pans out or not. It's like, go with what you're reading. Everything that you're feeling or thinking, Robin Hobb has given you from the text. So you're picking up whatever's in the text. However you choose to sort of put that together, awesome. And I see it a lot in the Hobb threads where people have found the right threads. They're not necessarily knotting them together quite right, but they're picking up the right things. And you're like, yes, you're seeing.
Like, we're talking about you.
Oh, we so are, honey. It's like a video game when you go into a town and someone's got a light on them. You're like, oh, I'm supposed to ask that person for a question. You're all picking up on the things that there's a little light over. And you're going, oh, that's a relevant thread. I need to remember that. And eventually you get enough of them that when you put them together and you think, that makes a pretty good picture. I like that picture makes sense. Whether you get more threads later or you realize, well, that thread actually doesn't belong in that particular picture, it belongs over in that one, doesn't change the fact that all of those threads exist and you're putting them together. So I do find it really interesting to listen and read what people are feeling and thinking with the information they're given, because some people take these ideas and they're like, they're so close. And I'm reading them and I'm going, ooh, they've almost got it. And I can't say anything because I can't say, oh, that's interesting that you thought of that, because now they're going, am I right? Am I wrong? I have to just let it sit there and not respond.
Yeah. Oh. Which is another response, not responding. So like, I messaged you multiple times like, well, I'm assuming I'm right if you haven't responded. So
and I have to sort of go, well, there just isn't a response I can give, because I don't want to say if somebody's assumption is wrong, because that's disheartening as a reader. You're like, well, And I don't want to say somebody's right, because it spoils for them the moment when the story tells them they're right. And that's just a marvelous feeling. So I kind of have to leave you all going, well, am I? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Read and find out.
I just have to sort of watch all and go, or that's not going to go well. It's part of the fun.
So switching from that to unexpected characters that I didn't anticipate to meet from, even though I did previously say at the start of this that there were no characters, at least from the previous series in this one. I should have clarified. I'm going to rephrase my statement. There are no characters to begin with. So
no.
I think
you do begin with that fresh cast, and it takes until City of Dragons before we get any returning.
Yeah. So specifically Malta and Selden. I mean, I had already grown to appreciate Malta during the Live Ship Traders trilogy, but I absolutely came to adore her in City of Dragons, particularly with the birthing scene. That sounds terrible.
Yeah, it does sound. It doesn't give it the same drama. I mean, it was a kidnapping. It was traumatic. It was scary. It was frightening. It was very, very tense to read.
Labor. That's
your
what I'm
heart's in your chest the whole time. You're like, oh my god.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a woman and you've been through childbirth or you've had any kind of related miscarriage type pains or feelings, the intensity of that hormone-driven physical reality that just takes your focus away from everything else. Reading those chapters is a moment because you're like, oh, okay, I know what that is. That's scary.
Well, then that just this like almost, well, not even almost. It's very primal, maternal instinct that she goes through, and you're like, she's literally fighting back the urge to make sure to see if her child is even alive between her legs, and she's trying to cover it
and protect it in case.
And
the dragonish nature of that I loved, because she became so focused in that moment of what I have to do right now to save potentially the life of this child, and she doesn't care in that moment.
Going back, being in the very present moment.
What needs to happen in this moment for me to get past this moment? And in that moment, I'm getting chills just talking about that, is if she had needed to in that moment, I genuinely believe she could have ripped that guy's throat out with her teeth. She was that in the moment. She was like, I'm going to do whatever this takes.
Yep.
And there's a real power in reading that, because you feel that she's gone, no, I control this. I'm going to do what I need to do. And I was like,
yes,
go Malta.
Yeah.
Queen. It was very intense scene. So I remember when you were reading through it and you were like, I don't know if I can even breathe. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
As I literally messaged our little group chat, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. So I became an archetype. So
you did. But proving that it's real.
Yeah. And then on the at the same time, you have this incredible scene where she has all this, she's taking that power and realizing it and utilizing it and for herself, and she's taking the action there. And then when needed, she's giving up that power to, in this case, Tarman, be like, she's recognizing, I need help me.
Yeah. And
and
please, whatever I need you to help me. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And that whole section of the story is very powerful, because it does touch on so many very primal things as a parent. I've had a premature baby. I mean, my baby was 2 pounds 11, and there is nothing that you won't do to make things better for that baby. Nothing.
I can't speak for my parents, but I was premature as well, 2 pounds 1 ounce. Yeah. So I have pictures of my dad's hand right up against my, and I wasn't even as big as his hand. So even when
it's terrifying. So to have a child that needs immediate assistance just to live is horrifying, and it's terrifying, and it's a fear that just there isn't even really words to describe, because it almost sets you outside yourself, that fear. Your body's just in terror and your brain's just going, I can't.
Yeah, instincts kick
to
in.
write that.
Yeah.
Oh, she just got that so right, that I don't care what it takes. I need my baby to be okay.
Yeah.
And knowing that baby was going to need a life ship.
Yeah.
Because,
And,
at this point they know what they are.
and I think actually Jerd is a good parallel to Malta.
Yes.
Really any of them. So, Jerd obviously is very open with her sexuality, and I would say that there's a little bit of like Thymara is slut shaming her a little bit.
Oh, she wholly is. She totally is.
Yeah. So, but there's this there is, especially after Jerd becomes pregnant and she goes into premature labor and she loses the child, and she knows, like, I think she saw the child, or no, somebody else saw it.
Because Belen showed all of the young girls, this is what you're risking.
Right. That's right. Even after that, she continues to make that choice. That, like,
she does.
That
it's a very selfish choice on her part.
I don't think it's a selfish. I think it's selfless. Like, I know this is going on the internet. I don't care. Like, I unfortunately have had miscarriages before, and going through that experience, albeit multiple times, but not to that same degree. It's thankfully always been early, but either way, whether it's been early or later in a pregnancy, I imagine it's going to take a toll.
Just as traumatic.
Yeah. It took me a very long time, and I still am dealing with the repercussions of going through those experiences mentally and physically. So
I'm sorry that you have to go through that. Just acknowledging that it is a horrible thing and it is traumatic, and I'm proud of you that you passed that. Yeah, you.
Again, reproductive rights, damn it.
It's important.
Yeah. So I think, so for me, reading Jerd, going through that experience, and then still being willing to take that chance to become pregnant and potentially go through that experience again, like, I still, to this day, I'm like, oh God, I don't want to go through that again. Like, they mentioned something about, like, they can prevent it or whatever. I'm finding things, but that she's still willing to do that because of she's owning herself and she's owning her sexuality, and she knows, like, there is a potential of this happening again. But going with living in the present, I'm going to do what I would like, even if that means, having a child or getting pregnant again and losing it. But I don't know. I really
think I'm picking up a bit of Thymara's judgment on that. I'm sitting here thinking about, okay, what have I read and why do I think that? And I think I am picking up some of Thymara's judgment on that. I am going to say that once they reach Calcingra, and there's an element of security around their lives as far as shelter, food, just general life-sustaining things, then I have no judgment. You do you, girl. You do you. I think while they were still traveling and they didn't know where they were going and they weren't in a state of consistent food, then it's not wise to be deliberately trying to get pregnant. You're increasing a burden on a small group of people, because it was such a small group of people that to have one person unable to move freely because of pregnancy was a risk to them all making it. That one person dealing with a small child is then a risk to a small group of people, because now we also have something that will attract predators. I have to remember to go, okay, once they reach Calcingra, none of those things are valid. So at this point, she's free to do whatever she likes. Whatever the outcome is a choice that she's making literally for herself and for her baby. Go for it. You do your thing.
So, I mean, I don't think she was like actively like, oh yeah, I'm trying to get pregnant. Like, she was just
willing to be.
So,
Yeah.
but I would also argue that putting that in the equivalency of today's era of like, oh, I don't want to have a child until I'm in a better place, until I'm in a better house or a better financial situation. There's never going to be the perfect time or situation
No, there
for a
isn't.
child. So I really appreciated that, just the depiction surrounding Jerd and her. Even though you don't get a perspective from her, you get everybody's viewpoint of her. Whether it's Thymara's judgment, Rapskull and Tats's like, oh, whatever, greft, whatever. I of the scenes that we see with her and surrounding her, I absolutely appreciate her journey. Like I would have loved to get a perspective from her. So
I think it would have been a really good one to read, because she does grow significantly as a young woman in those, particularly in the last 2 books, once they reach Kalsinga. And she's got access to all of those memories and access to all of the knowledge that is just everywhere. She only has to be looking at the images on the walls and there's knowledge. And she does make significant growth in those 2 books, like all of the young men do. We talk about Thymara and how much she grows. All of them, all of those young people take enormous leaps into adulthood once they reach Kalsinga, because now they can make up for the lacks that they've had in their youth with all of the memories of the elderlings that have gone before. They're able to, as Rapskull says, that they're able to go through these memories and choose. I want to learn this. I want to know more about that. I want to be this. I want to be that. I want to be an artist. I can go and look at the memories of that artist and learn how to do that. And they all do. All of them.
That and they don't have greft trying to establish control all over them.
They're free to do what, yeah.
So, But Selwyn.
So I would like to touch on Cedric. I mean, we looked at the kids, and we've mentioned Lefton, and we've talked about Alice, but Cedric undergoes such a fundamental character shift.
Oh yeah.
Once he forms that bond with Ralta, and you see the man he was before Hest got into his head, basically. And I liked seeing that you can undo, years of abuse, because let's face it, Cedric was an abused husband, and he was able to undo that, and he was able to move past it. And even in the last book, he's still dealing with it. He's still having to really work at his reactions and not immediately assume that things are his fault or he's not good. And I liked that depiction there, that we got that even men can be abused and it can be moved past. I thought I really liked the way that was handled.
Yeah, so I was a little nervous starting the Rain Wild Chronicles. Well, one, I should backtrack. I was so excited to see a same-sex couple on page, but then I was also nervous because it's Hest, and there's the abuse aspect and the power aspect of it. And I'm like, oh god, is this gonna be like oh all
it's always going to be bad,
predators or whatever. But no, like this is just the nuance and the explorations of power structure at play. Cedric and Carson are probably my favorite couple. Like,
they are just relationship goals.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so beautiful how Hobb just portrays characters like Cedric and like Carson, and through them that there's this expectation that they have of themselves and maybe of others, but how you shouldn't have those expectations. You're able to break free of the expectations that you set for yourself or of other people, and it's just so great. I what was it? I think it was in Dragon Haven. Was it Dragon Haven? When either way. So when Cedric takes the blood from Repelda and just starts gushing out and he winds up ingesting it, oh god, it's gonna bother me. It's not this one. I'm looking it up. No, but there was a scene. There was a scene in particular that when Repelda, oh, that's what it was. So it's when Cedric, Repelda, and what's his name? Jess. There you go. Are it's after the storm and the earthquake. And Jess is like, oh, we have an opportunity. We can kill the dragon. She's, just calm her down. And there was this moment where I was like, I genuinely didn't know what was going to happen. Of course, Robin Hobb leaves it off on a cliffhanger in that chapter. But just the absolute and utter, just the reaction of Repelda and the way that Hobb describes that, I was in tears because I'm like, please don't do it. Please don't. Oh God, please don't do it. Not because of I didn't want him to kill a dragon. It's that relationship has already gotten so deeply into me that I'm like, I don't want that relationship to totally.
And it would have been such a betrayal, not only between Zelda and Rupta, but between us as the reader and that relationship. And it would have been a betrayal because you're like, no, we're watching Zelda. I said, grow here. We're watching him actually have proper emotions and deal with a relationship in a healthy way. Please don't dirty this, because there's a real beauty to that relationship. There's a real purity to it. He desperately wants to protect her from these evil things that he knows happen. And it was just such a pure relationship. And she's just such an innocent dragon. And that betrayal would have just gutted me. So I'm really glad it didn't happen. And I know it would have gutted you. So I'm really glad it didn't happen. Yeah. But instead you get that moment of cheering that, no, we're going to celebrate this connection and we're going to let it flourish. And there's a real uplifting sense to that. Once you get over that cliffhanger, you're like, oh, I'm allowed to be happy about this relationship. I can support them. I can cheer for them. I can watch all of their milestones together and be happy about them. And that's so lovely to know.
Yeah. Yes. And so one thing that I've been kind of like throwing around in my head and trying to figure out, like, how do I actually verbalize this and put it into like more concrete words, which seems like a oxymoron. But the Rain Wild Chronicles is, especially with Cedric, is the complete antithesis of the miscommunication trope. He is so, like, he's worried about, like, I don't want to lie to anyone. And again, with Carson, like, he tells them the truth. And Hest, later when Hest comes by, he's like, oh, I bet, your friends don't know. And Cedric is like, actually, they know everything. The dragon knows absolutely everything. Carson knows absolutely everything. And I'm like, it's just beautiful to read that.
It is, because you see the freedom it gives him.
Exactly. And it's not that miscommunication is a bad thing. The miscommunication trope is a bad thing. It's just that it's refreshing to read not only just the pure and utter openness of these characters, but in the midst of everything else, it just really elevates it, and everything just all the themes that Hobb does and melds together and explores alongside and parallel to each other shine on their own, but really kind of boost up the other things as well.
It highlights how
yeah,
damaging miscommunication is. It highlights the fact that if you tell lies, if you build a world around this, eventually someone's going to come along and can rip that out from under you because you've told the lies. You know, it's going to come back eventually. Sometimes karma takes a long time, and that can be frustrating for those of us who have to wait. However, by showing you that if you don't, by showing you the flip side of this miscommunication and lying, by showing that if you tell the truth to the people around you, trust that they're going to forgive you, trust that they're going to have your back, trust that they will allow that, okay, you made a mistake, we can move on. Showing how much that empowers you in the future, that no, I don't have to tell lies. I don't have to continue to cover that up. I can be honest right now and know that everyone around me has my back. So you get that juxtaposition of you live with lies, you carry that with you always, with the freedom of telling the truth and being free to do and say whatever you need to do in the moment, because you don't have to keep hiding anything.
Which
it's
is
wonderfully written.
Which I think Andrew, one of the things that makes this feel so different and maybe off-putting is that it's in direct opposition to Fitz. Fitz is he's not purposefully no, but in some ways
very secretive.
Yeah, he's very very standoffish to everyone. He's not open to anyone. And I think the narrative actually, obviously, because it's from his perspective, it mirrors that kind of the not.
Well, he never feels free to be himself. He never has the power to just do what needs doing. He's always got to frame it around, what do they already know about me? Is there a way I can do what I want to do without me destroying that? Because I need that. I need that limited view to protect me. And he's trapped by his own secrecy.
Yeah.
So often.
And then
you see the freedom that Cedric had, because he let himself out of that and went, no, I don't have to do that anymore.
Well, there's that, and then there's also like another part of a triangle here is Kenneth in the Live Ship Traders trilogy, where he is using he's not lying to anyone, but he's also not telling any truths. He's just using people and how they see him or what they think about him to his benefit, rather than being open.
He's allowing that misbelief to continue. He's not correcting anybody. And that's just as damaging, because he's like, well, I could correct these people at any time and tell them that actually I don't care about you at all. But the fact that they believe that he does works for him. So he's like, believe what you like, works for me. And it's the layers, seriously. Everything can be connected to at least sort of 3 or 4 other things, which is amazing and makes reading them enjoyable, because sometimes you catch one connection and then the next day you'll read the next chapter and find another connection. And there's always connections that you can make, either between the books, between the characters, between books and real life, between yourself and a character. There's so many. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So another character that I mentioned a little bit ago that we met in previous books is Selden. So we get perspectives from him. And I was a bit confused. I'm like, whoa, where is this coming from? Why is this comes out of left field? What's going on?
Yeah, it does, because it does seem unattached.
Yeah, I was absolutely intrigued there. I'm like, why is he on a slave ship? Whoa, what's happening? And then you quickly, so let me backtrack that. You get the Selden perspective starting in City of Dragons, right? I think. Yes. And then that's when I'm like, what's going on? What the heck? And then I think it's the last chapter of City of Dragons. Hobb Hobb reminds you that she's still Hobb, and she's still she's still manipulating. She's
You're still on the torture rack. She hasn't let you go. She's just gonna crank the wheel a bit.
Yeah, the scene where he eats, where the Duke of Chalced eats the part of Selden is genuinely disgusting, but fascinating.
It is, and you've been primed to it because you've been told all the way through those first books that this is what the Duke of Chalced has been looking for. This is what he wants.
Yep.
So when you finally get it, you're like, oh, this is going to be bad.
and then it gets worse because he's drinking his blood.
Yeah. But as we've said, we've learned at this point that the horrible thing about it is that it is going to work because there is silver in Selden's blood and it is going to help. It is magic. And that's the horror of it because, if nothing was going to happen, then it's just awful that this is happening, that this is a tragedy and it should never happen. But the Duke of Chalced is right. Taking of Sheldon will increase his life. And that somehow makes it worse because how do you get Selden out of that? You can't go, well, it's not working, we can take him away, because it is working. And
so the relationship second to Carson and Cedric, I very quickly was absolutely I was in it for the long haul with Chasm and Selden. Not even necessarily romantically. I'm like
the bond that they form as victims.
It is so
wonderful.
So quick that I'm like, yes, I'm in it. And I can't remember. Have you read Augustus by John Williams?
I have not yet. I'm sorry.
Okay. No worries. So I had just read Augustus before I think it was after I read the first book, so between the first and second book. Either way, it was in the midst of the Rain Wilds. And Chasm and the Duke, the dynamic there, not for a 1-to-1 equation, but it just reminded me of Augustus and his daughter Julia. And I'm like, this is the perfect happenstance of reading, that I could equate these two things together, because if I hadn't, I probably would have been like, oh, that's cool. I probably would have still liked her, but it just that added layer of oh, I have this this.
Oh, she's so completely being used as a pawn. It's like, no, you're my daughter and I should be grooming you to be my heir, but no, you're who I'm going to decide something else. You're just the piece I'm going to use to do the thing. And it's not even objectification, because there's no sense of pride in ownership that you would often associate with objectification. She literally is a belonging that he's going to use. It's repugnant to read the way he treats her.
Yeah, well, obviously that is despicable. But the thing that I quickly felt I don't even get a perspective from her. I don't even see her on page at the end of City of Dragons. But Alec is talking to the Duke about her poetry. And the Duke is like, oh, it's just about flowers and stuff. And he's like, no, it's a call to arms.
It's a rebellion.
Yeah. And it's women rising up? Nonsense. You know this how? When would you have cause to encounter my daughter's poems? In my wife's chambers 2 days ago. So it's just so good. Really, I wanted really more of Chasm, and that, not only for the Rain Wild Chronicles, her story really adds so much to the traction and the plot of the story, but I'm so fascinated to see the wider repercussions of Chasm now as the Duchess of Chalced, and that not truce, but the relationship between the Rain Wild, specifically Kelsingra and the Chalced is it Chelsea States?
States, yeah.
Oh, there you go. I have the map right there. I'm very observant. Yeah, so I'm just so fascinated in how that will impact the six duchies, and I just want to throw away my TBR and just read Fitz in the Fool right now.
Well, I'm never going to argue with that. I'm the wrong person that to talk about, to try and make you stick to a TBR if Hobb is involved.
Just not. If I blow off any more buddy reads, no one's going to want to buddy read with me anymore.
Evie, you're Evie. People will always want to buddy read with you.
Well, you know,
just
at least I'll have you to always read Robin Hobb.
Oh, hell yeah.
with stuff.
Absolutely. There is, not long ago, Robin Hobb tweeted that she was writing. And I am, as you would say, giddy about this. I am so giddy about this because there are things from the Rain Wilds, there are things in Fitz in the Fool, there are things that I've put together from all of my multiple rereading. I'm like, oh, please address that. Because there's something there. I want that bit of the story, please. And so,
I mean, we have
the
our
story isn't. I mean, it's finished. The story has been told, but it can continue and not in a forced way. If it continues, there's enough there that it deserves to continue. So.
Well, I will add, just because we've been going for almost an hour and a half, because I could, Derri, I could talk about this for hours, which we can do a part 2. That's fine too. I don't care. Yeah. I will say that we are reading Cloven Hoofs together, so
we are. Yes,
we have more than just Realm of the Elderlings for Robin Hobb / Megan Lindholm. So
we do. And it's very exciting. It is very exciting because I've only read the short stories of Megan Lindholm in the Inheritance collection. And I like them. They're nice. They do have a different feel. They definitely have a different feel. And I see why she has the 2 pen names. Not least because, of course, Margaret Ogden doesn't exactly fly off the shelves. But it's... I'm looking forward to just that different lens. Again, lenses. She's very good at going, okay, I want to tell a story that looks at it this way. And so I'm looking forward to a novel length from her as Megan Lindholm, just to see how that translates.
So I will kind of bring this back to the Rain Wild Chronicles.
Sorry.
No, overall, so generally. Yeah. So, Andrew, talking to you. That this series gets so much crap that it is subpar compared to
it's not fair.
Farseer and Live Ship and Tawny Man, and I imagine Fool as well. It as you said, it is very unfair, and it does not only the Rain Wild Chronicles a disservice, but it does. And I will fight to my death on this. Like, Andrew, you name a time and a place, I will meet you there like a duel. It does Robin Hobb a disservice because
it does.
There's very much an intentionality going on. Like, I don't think if she had written it the same way, I know that's a very nebulous statement. Oh, if she wrote it the same way as Farseer or Live Ship. She wrote it the way that the Rain Wild Chronicles needed to be written, and the way that the story demanded being told, with the characters, the way that they went. I'm a Robin Hobb alkalite on the Derri Robin Hobb religion train, whatever you want to call it. I'm just in it for the long haul. Whether she writes as Robin Hobb, Megan Lindholm, Joe Schmo, I don't care. I will read whatever she writes, and I absolutely trust her. And even if she wanted to write like I don't know, straight up erotica in space, which
I would probably read that.
there is erotica. I was going to say Blue Aliens erotica, but I'm like, there's already that.
Yeah, that already
Not
exists.
by Robin Hobb. But no,
I would read it.
If she wrote something completely wildly different,
Yeah.
I would be all for it at this point.
Yeah.
And I just trust her as an author and her storytelling. And I try to, just like with anything that I read, I try to not put expectations on what on the story that I want. Yeah. I try to meet the author in the middle, and I think that makes for a great, probably the greatest reading experience is when you can have that meeting in the middle and appreciation of what the author is showing versus
it's being in the now. It's this is what you're reading. Read this, not what you want it to be, not what you hope that it's going to be. Read what it is, and what it is really good because it is still Robin Hobb. Is it as off the wall, fantastically, mind-bogglingly, gobsmackingly perfect as Tawny Man? No. Is it Robin Hobb? Yes. Which means it's better than a lot of other fantasy that's out there already.
And
that needs to be remembered.
Yeah, and I would argue that I would argue that people that don't like Rain Wild Chronicles are probably comparing the checkmark boxes or tickers of, well, how many times have I cried?
Yeah.
Rain Wild is not a crying book. It doesn't have those emotionally devastating moments. There's definitely emotional moments in there, like very harrowing, hence Malta.
Oh, yeah.
Hence Repelda.
Yeah.
But it's not like, oh, I'm going to sob like crazy because Night Eyes died.
No, but you are going to get context. You are going to get richness. And what you get in the Rain Wilds is it's very much fuel for what you're going to go into in Fitz and the Fool. And all of the things that you learn in the Rain Wilds add to that final trilogy like you would not believe. This is not a part of the series you can skip. For as much as we say you can't skip Live Ships, a lot of that is based on just the quality of that trilogy. The quality of that trilogy is astoundingly good. Rain Wilds, you need to get everything you need from this series because that knowledge that you get about silver, the knowledge that you get around dragons, the knowledge that you get around the way elderlings store knowledge and share knowledge and keep knowledge, all of that is important to the way the story rounds up. And if you don't have it, that final trilogy is just not going to land the way it needs to. Yeah. Because, I'm all for this series being the best experience possible. And for that, you need to read all of it. Yeah. And that's just how it goes.
And, I will add that,
opening.
Yeah. And I will add that, we've talked about it before. I think it was on either mine and yours, Farseer chat, or mine, yours, and Joanna's Tetrakin chat. Maybe. Either way.
One of them.
Again, there's this, everything is in the context of the whole is necessary for the wider series. But Rain, again, I don't have the benefit of reading the entire series yet, but Rain Wilds by itself, if I took it just by itself, it is, for what is being written and the story being told, absolutely
really good
a great series.
Yeah.
You could argue that the first two books, Dragon Keeper and Dragon Haven, are crap. Sure, fine. But those two books are absolutely necessary for City of Dragons and Blood of Dragons to absolutely purely shine. And so I wouldn't have it any other way. It's I'm just trying to be like, well, yes, we need to, everyone needs to read Rain Wild to be able to get context for Fitz and the Fool, but even Rain Wild
as its own entity, so it's worth reading.
It's so good.
It has value. It's worth reading. These are great characters. This is a great tense situation. There's a lot of pressure on these individuals. There are a lot of personality conflicts. There's a lot of drama. There's all of the things that we love about Rob and Hobb. They're all here.
Mhm.
They're all still here. This is absolutely a series worth reading, you know, on its own merit. And it winds me up when I'm like, just, it's rubbish and you shouldn't. No, it is not rubbish. And
Andrew,
did you go into it too quickly after Tourneyman? Probably. Did you go into it with expectations for something else? Probably. Are you letting your own perception of what the major themes are affect your reading of it? Possibly. Be in the moment, be in the now, read it for what it is, because what it is great.
Yeah. All right. On that note, I think at least maybe part one
for today.
I don't know. I think that's a great way to wrap it up. So I'm going to go ahead and end this broadcast.
Right.
I will. Not that it matters, because if you've made it all the way through this video, hopefully you'll already have seen it. But I'm definitely going to put trigger warning descriptions, just because, again, there's a lot of stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
So with our discussion and stuff like that. So I'll put that down in the description. I'll put Andrew's and
we need to really link Andrew.
Yeah.
Sorry, Andrew.
Just fan the flames of hatred and like, you're wrong, Andrew.
Hey, if I'm gonna have a feud, Andrew's okay to have a feud with.
Yeah.
So
and obviously Derri's channel will be linked down below, because you guys shouldn't be subscribed to me and not subscribed to Derri. I'm just saying, because
wouldn't go quite that far. But if you're here for Realm of the Elderlings stuff, you should so be subscribed to me.
Or Discworld. So even though I haven't.
Oh yeah, or Discworld.
I'm so sorry.
I will get you there, don't worry.
I'm gonna go ahead and end this broadcast. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Derri, for joining me, because I could talk about this for hours, and who better to discuss Realm of the Elderlings with?
Thank